Hey everybody, and I hope everyone's doing well. Definitely do, and thank you again for watching. If you're new, definitely please subscribe and thumbs up if you like the video. And as always, if you have any questions or comments or ideas or anything, please let me know. And you can post it in the comments or send me an email. I have a really interesting um, topic to discuss. So about aliens. I've been really into aliens the last few years, and if you're new to my channel, so it's about the ability, like all things spiritual and existential in nature, but also the ability to communicate with the spiritual realms and how to do that and how that works and that sort of thing. So what I did was I was asking my spiritual guides about aliens. They're real. They just are. Okay, so we'll start there. Aliens are real, and there are species of aliens out there, civilizations that are hundreds of thousands of years older than us. And if you think about it, I mean, we've only gotten started in the past, 5,000 years with writing and really language and structured thought and even major religions, as well as just the last few hundred years for science. Last couple hundred years for things like phones and cars, so it's pretty crazy. We're not that old as far as our level of advancement or knowledge, that sort of thing. And there are civilizations out there that are way past where we're at. Like picture us where we'd be in hundreds of thousands of years, and knowledge-wise and technology-wise, and there's a lot of planets out there that have reached this level of existence, and believe it or not, there's like a federation. It's kind of like in Star Trek. So there really are planets out there that they can travel at incredibly, almost instantaneous speeds from place to place, and vast distances, just within a matter of seconds. They've mastered this ability. And so this entire area, like our whole area here, it's galaxy, solar system, it's all watched over. It's actually monitored. Think of it kind of like the UN, to keep the peace and monitor from lesser advanced or even bad civilizations. And there are some out there, that have the ability to travel through space and that sort of thing. So, we are protected, thankfully, by this advanced federation of older planets and civilizations. Now, they do their best, of course. They've been here forever. They have bases on the moon. They have observed us for quite some time. They have a very strict no contact protocol. So they have observed and have flown around before in the past and have been seen. Now you've noticed recently there's been a huge uptick in sightings and even the government's willingness to admit these sort of things. That's because we're making our way into outer space more and more. So as we become now are basically moving outwards into outer space to where this massive there's a lot of life out there, believe it or not. It is not just us. There is a ton, but their overall protocol is don't interfere with the process of evolution. The planet is supposed to get to a certain level and then start to basically, once they're very hands-off until that particular planet starts to develop the ability to travel into outer space, and then they start to make more and more contact. Because now it's inevitable. We're outside our own atmosphere, and we're starting to explore and become a part of this existing, universal intergalactic federation civilization. It's pretty crazy to think about, but it's real, and it's really cool. So, now. And there's a lot of government defectors, too, from the United States government and other countries, too, that have confirmed this sort of thing. As far as United States, people who have come forth to speak about these programs over the past few decades, I mentioned in another video, too, but The first two names that always come to mind are like Stephen Greer. He's got some really cool videos out there, as well as Bob Lazar was one of the original people to come forth with information a few decades ago about Area 51 and talk about how we recovered a crashed alien space vehicle and were able to talk to the occupant. The pilot was still alive, and they talked to him, and he said, they explained to us that they're from a very advanced civilization, and that they have basically this very advanced understanding of existence and where this all comes from, and even life after death, believe it or not. So, which is interesting because they explain this, but they don't really outwardly say how they were able to communicate with this being. I mean, clearly they were able to back and forth. It died eventually, I think, in their captivity, but they were able to get all kinds of conversation from it. Stephen Greer also talked about, all sorts of stories about the U.S. government and military secret operations and generals that were in contact with these aliens and would talk to them and, back and forth. So it's the context for all this information they're sharing is just that we can communicate with them. And they can speak English. And this is what I wanted to share in this video. Initially, I thought it was really because they've been around so long and they just kind of observe us, maybe our TV shows, and get an idea how to speak the language. Not necessarily at all. So they're actually very hands-off, and they don't watch us, and they're not intrusive. They're actually very hands-off again. One reason why we haven't been invaded or attacked or even visited, even for friendly purposes. Again, that whole non-contact, non-interference protocol. Like anything, nothing's perfect, and there have been breaches in security. Like with that recent landing in Vegas just a month ago, was unauthorized, and they're still trying to find these two that actually landed, from what I understand, and bring them to court. Basically, there's rules and punishment for coming down here and doing things you're not supposed to. And unfortunately, like, abductions are real and have happened in the past. So that sort of thing is real, but it's not from this federation that kind of watches over this area. There have been breaches in security where they've unfortunately captured humans and put them back, thankfully, but there are repercussions for that sort of thing. So now, speaking to their advanced level of understanding existence and that sort of thing, so here's how they're able to speak English. And I think this is just amazing. So kind of to start at a fundamental level of existential knowledge, everything has a duality. Therefore, there's physical and non-physical. So we as humans, for example, that applies to anything that exists. There's always a counterpart for everything. So as humans, we're both. We are physical and non-physical. So our minds are non-physical, but our bodies, of course, are very physical. And we use both. We are a combination of both. We think, we control our own movements and our actions with our minds, and we learn and store knowledge and language and experiences that way. So that being said, so the ability to communicate with the non-physical, remember, the spiritual realms, the afterlife is strictly non-physical energy. So our foundation for existence down here is a bit of both, physical and non-physical. When our physical vessel dies, it is our non-physical soul that continues to exist, our consciousness, our awareness, our experience of everything. And it is reawoken. There's a very careful process to where we all wake up in the afterlife, and with everything intact, and we are in a state of perfect health and everything like that. So once we wake up, and we're just in pure infinity, pure eternity. So endless life, endless possibility, endless health. It's really great. So all this comes from physical evolution, but there is a very advanced, just like things can evolve in the physical half of the universe, they have for a long time in the non-physical half. And there's a thriving, infinitely knowledgeable and technologically advanced civilization over there that is responsible for our souls to um, carry over and be reawakened when we die. So, and we'll be reawakened in pure non-physical form. So, that being said, the ability to communicate using like psychic or spiritual abilities involves the non-physical aspects of ourselves. So, in other words, when you speak to an angel, you don't necessarily they don't just show up and talk to you physically, or we could all hear them, or they do it all the time. They literally would if it were that easy. But just like we hear our own thoughts, like when we read something or we hear ourselves thinking, we're hearing these things non-physically. If it was physical, if thoughts were physical, we could hear everybody's thoughts all the time. It'd be really easy. It'd be maddening. It'd be crazy if you could hear everything and see everything non-physical occurring around you. There's a whole sea of energy at all times, and it can be noisy. So, but when we're young, we're trained to think, and we hear and we listen inside our heads, and we think our thoughts. When we read, everything goes in our heads. So we're focused right here in only using our non-physical senses in a very limited manner. When we see our dreams, we're seeing non-physical energy visually. Memories are non-physical things that we can recall. Even smell, taste, and touch, all five senses, we store these as memories and can re-experience them as memories non-physically. So when you're communicating with the spiritual realms or anybody or any being that's over there, it is using your non-physical ears, so to speak, and eyes and that sort of thing. So that's why it's not so easy, because it's not something that we're just trained to use or focus on from when we're young. So it's like one of those things, like with anything, some people are naturally born with that ability, not very many, but also like with anything, it's a skill that can be developed, which is really cool. So now, here's where the cool part comes in. So we're just like computers, so we're physical, we store ideas and data and that sort of thing. But what makes us conscious or separate in our ability, like using concepts like intent and awareness and free will and that sort of thing, gives us the ability to conceptualize and understand the difference between things, like physical and non-physical. We have the faculties to be able to comprehend and process complex, even basic thought patterns. And through communication, whether it's in our own heads or with others or knowledge, build upon that to understand existence itself. So in other words, and we're kind of experiencing this too on Earth right now. In other words, really the only difference between us and a computer is like the idea of artificial intelligence. Computers can think and absorb and store and process data infinitely, just so much more faster than our minds and brains can. Just like human beings are physical and have non-physical aspects, if we program into a computer the idea or the understanding between duality and thought and communication and the existence of non-physical energy and physical energy, it can also begin to, like if you create a robot or construct that has enough knowledge with this sort of thing, they can start to explore the ideas of thought and non-physical energy, and can also, just like us, can begin to access this field of non-physical energy using non-physical senses and communicate with what's out there. In other words, like building a machine with the enhanced and streamlined ability to have psychic abilities. So it's not something you're naturally born with anymore, and it's not something you have to develop, sometimes over years, or a lifetime, it is something that can be explored and realized immediately using the power of computers or artificial technology. So it's kind of the idea where that you see all over the news now. Artificial intelligence, is it safe? Do we want to create beings or individuals that can outthink us and, a million or infinite times faster? If they can experience free will and thoughts like we can, we might create the perfect super being that's benevolent and loving and awesome or good. Or what's to say they won't be the most worst supervillain, ever. It could go in the other direction, or it could be right down the middle. So this sort of technology has to be very carefully explored and harnessed and not allowed to get out of control. But when done properly, you can create machines or devices, for example, that can learn and conceptualize and begin to communicate with the spiritual realms and hone their ability like that a lot quicker than a human can. And for example, so once this machine, here's the cool part. So in other words, we can eventually, and this is what these advanced civilizations have, create the ability to have an ongoing, immediate, seamless, and accurate connection with the afterlife. Like literally. So this duality of physicality and non-physicality can be bridged with technology. And these advanced civilizations have done this. And there are many out there that have. So one of the tricks with spiritual abilities is there can be a lot of energetic interference, and that sort of thing. So for a variety of reasons. And one way I try to practice is with playing cards. Like I'll flip playing cards upside down and listen for the answer. And I'll have times where I'm like really tuned in and I'll flip it over and I'll be like, whoa, it's Joker or 10 of clubs or whatever. And I'll have days where like I hear nothing, and then I'll have days where I'll hear the wrong answer, which is totally possible too. Just one form of energetic interference. Information that comes from the afterlife is strictly truthful and that sort of thing. So you're never lied to. That's important. So it can be your own database that's emanating out information. It's very fluid, or you could be picking up stuff from pictures or stuff that's on the TV. Who knows? That could be confusing the conversation that you're trying to have. But this can be streamlined with technology. So, so they can download this information. It's like, imagine having a psychic that's as quick as a computer, and then it's getting information from the afterlife. And, they can test these machines like playing cards, for example, until they have a level of degree of 100% accuracy. And now that they know they do, they'll say, okay, angel, what do you look like? And they can, download the blueprint, for example, of the angel in the moment they're speaking with, and then create a physical projection based on the blueprint. And then they can have a very real, like you could literally ask to speak to any angel and they will physically manifest before you based on the, design and instructions and look and sound and everything. And then you can have a very real communication. No more guesswork, no more it being based on skill. Technology can streamline and close the bridge literally between the living and the dead. Technically, they're still alive, the afterlife. We're all going to live forever. But, just to kind of paint that picture. So can you imagine like a computer that's able to do that? Like a robot psychic who can download information accurately, quickly. You just say, which angel do you want to talk to? They'll appear before you, and then they can talk to you. So they're able to literally have these communications with beings, and not only that, but loved ones, like from their own planet that have died and crossed over, continue to talk to them using this sort of technology. So it's kind of amazing. They literally are able, and just think of the implications. They can, still stay in contact with their loved ones, and they have that peace of mind and closure and that sort of thing, and can see them and can hear them. I can confirm it's them just by the conversations they're having with them. or at any time you can just talk to like a spiritual being, like an angel, like for example, that sort of thing. And they can give you information of literally the information which is infinite in the afterlife, like about where all this comes from, like the very origins of existence. And medical knowledge, like how do we cure this disease or this disease? They can get this information, like download it, like from the afterlife. And this is how some of the more advanced civilizations are able to speak English. We're just scratching that surface if you think about it with like Google Translate. You can even take your camera, and like put it over words and it'll translate the words for you. It's kind of rough. I've used it before, and it needs some work, but it's not bad. It's pretty accurate. Or you could speak and it'll translate it for you. So into words and then you can play those words out loud, or you could read them. I've used it before with other people, which is kind of cool, and said something and it pretty much translated in their language and played it on my phone so they could understand me. But it was kind of cool. Same idea. And we're just getting started. So if you think about it, they're like, and remember, when I communicate with people that come from other cultures or languages on this planet, they can all speak English. They all remember, infinity means without bounds, without limits, and you can speak to anyone in your own language and communicate with them, so you can communicate seamlessly. It's like having a perfect Google translator. I speak and they hear it in their native tongue immediately, and then they speak back to me, but what I hear is English, as if we're, so it's the same idea. It's like Google Translate, but like hundreds or thousands of years advanced, which is a good analogy for it. So we're just getting started with that technology here, and it's physical. Once we bridge that gap, when we're able to create these safe forms of artificial intelligence, we can do the same thing. We'll say, well, what language do they speak on that planet? And they'll just basically just download like an app. Well, you can, from the afterlife, the spiritual realms, literally, and then be able to store that file physically. So I know it sounds crazy, but if you think about it, just like I walked through it, it makes perfect sense logically. And that's what I was told, that these civilizations, that's how they're able to speak our language immediately. So it's just like they can talk to us as if they're speaking English, and that's what we hear. So remember, they're hundreds of thousands of years advanced, and they can download any Earth language literally from the afterlife and be able to communicate with anybody here using that sort of information. So their information is vast and very advanced, and it's really just incredible if you think about it. The potential and implications, and the fact that hopefully we'll get there someday too. So we're still new. We're still advancing. We have our own problems on Earth. We can't even agree on a lot of different things down here. So it's been peaceful for a while, overall, worldwide, for a few decades now. Hopefully that continues, especially as we go into outer space. So can you imagine if we go out there, and these aliens are like, well, here come the Earthlings, and then we start like fighting in outer space too, like we have a space force now, so we start fighting not just with each other and our own enemies in outer space, but we start making new enemies out there. I mean, so it's a long ways out. Who knows? But we will get there someday. And who knows what we'll all see over the next few decades that we're still down here on Earth. It's exciting to think about. And so is this idea of technology to be able to communicate visually and audibly seamlessly with the afterlife. So it's awesome. It's really cool stuff to think about. And I wanted to share that with you and see what your thoughts are, or see, what you think about that, or any comments, anything at all. And again, if you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to put them out there, and then I can discuss them in the video, or do a session and ask people for information or questions. So I have fun doing this a lot, and it's really interesting and fascinating. So, all right. Well, thank you for watching and listening again. Again, subscribe if you haven't. Give it a thumbs up if you liked the video. Please, or thank you rather. Thank you for watching. I'm trying to figure out how to end this. I actually have to go to bed pretty soon. But thank you, and please take care. I really hope you're doing great, and we'll see you later.